Oh my goodness, that was yummy. You know, it is very true that what it is we believe is what we create for ourselves. And so it is important to pay attention and make sure that, as Ernest said, Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of our philosophy, said that you need to be willing, you need to be sure you're willing to live with the consequences of your thoughts, because it's not really what it is what we do is based on our belief system. And what we believe to be true about the world becomes true for us, even if the person standing next to us is in a totally different world. So this month, well, the theme is facing the fear. Our theme today is a question of faith. And there's two questions. One, what is faith? And two, what do you have faith in? Because we all have faith in something. Most of us, you know, when I was growing up, I was raised Catholic. And so I had absolute faith that the Holy Mother was on my side. And if I did a novena, that good things would happen. I had absolutely pure and perfect faith as a child or as a teenager with insomnia, that if I would say the rosary, that would put me to sleep. Now, the problem I had was that then I'd fall asleep and not be done with the rosary, but I was promised the angels would finish it for me. What we have faith in becomes our truth. Some people have faith in science. Some people have faith in an infinite good. Some people just have faith in their favorite sports team. And that's cool. That is exactly what it is meant to be. But let's take the first question. What is faith? I've had many people who find out I'm a minister and say, oh, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in all of that fairy tale stuff. So my question to them is, tell me about the God you don't believe in. And 9 times out of 10, I can very honestly say, I don't believe in that God either. I have no faith in a God that plays favorites. I have no faith in a God that is vicious or gets back at people. I have faith in a divine being that is A, immediately present, and B, something above and beyond anything that I could possibly describe. And so if we don't say what it is we have faith in, we don't know if we share our faith with other people. So in the glossary of the Science of Mind textbook, which is our scripture, if you will, it says faith is a mental attitude so inwardly embodied that the mind can no longer deny it. So true faith is something we simply accept as true. My cat, who is on my desk and holding onto my other arm right now, has absolute faith that this is his place to sleep. And that if I stand up, it means I'm offering him my chair. He has absolute faith that someone's going to feed him every afternoon, even though he will yowl starting 2 hours in advance, just in case. Ernest Holmes also says faith is complete when it is both conscious and subjective as an experience. So conscious is the things you're thinking about. Subjective is all that stuff in your, what we now would call the subconscious. Or if you go even deeper, the unconscious beliefs. Those things that we don't ever really question. If I flip on a light, the light will go on. That's a conscious belief because I'm thinking about it right now, but most of the time I just don't even think about it. I flip the switch and keep going. I have a subconscious belief in gravity, which became very conscious last week. I have a absolute faith that when I log on to my computer, I'm gonna be able to be in contact with my friends. We all have faith in something. And when it is so much a part of us that we no longer think about it, that it becomes automatic, that's when we know it is both a conscious and a subjective acceptance. And the third part of the definition is that faith may be consciously generated. We may choose to start looking for evidence of a higher truth. So for instance, when I started studying this stuff 20 years ago, I was very much on my own. I had a strong belief that I had to do everything myself. I was consciously aware, and I would say it and unfortunately affirm it, that there was no safety net for me. There was no one to call if I was in trouble. Now, over the years, I have studied abundance as a part of this philosophy, to the point where last week, as I'm laying on the floor looking up and saying many words I will not repeat, my first thought was, I'm okay. I'm okay. And when I realized that I was perhaps not as okay as I thought I was, it never occurred to me that when I called the practitioner, Diane Gazelle, that she would say, yeah, I'm busy, go away. It never occurred to me. And as a matter of fact, it was such a relief that I was fine. I was planning on doing Sunday service right up until the moment I called her and I heard her voice, and that's when I started bawling. I thought I had a concussion, so I was just a little freaked out. It never occurred to me when I called Hazel Bowman that she would say, you know, I'm not in the mood. I'm still in my jammies and I don't feel like being a practitioner today. And I knew that she would call the others and it would get taken care of. Everything would be taken care of. That's prosperity. That is joy as I understand them now. It doesn't matter what's in your bank account. My faith tells me that what I need is there when I need it, because I consciously affirmed those truths. Because I consciously taught myself to catch myself. When I said, I have to do it myself, there's no one I can ask. I'm on my own in this cold and lonely world where I have to walk uphill both ways in the snow or whatever to get wherever I'm going. It is important that we pay attention to our thinking and what it is we say we believe, because we are programming our own subconscious to believe it. And it's not the kind of thing necessarily that I can prove with logical facts. I'll never forget sitting with someone early on in my career who was very, very concerned about our finances. Now, this center happens to be relatively wealthy. I'm not saying that we're eating lobster every day and sitting on gold-plated chairs, because A, tacky, and B, very uncomfortable. The chairs, not the lobster. But this person, you know, she had survived being raised by people who were part of the Depression era. And so for her, there was never enough, and squirreling away money was the most important thing you could do. Now, as we were sitting there, somebody came in. Normally, I would not allow anyone in while I was doing a session, but this wasn't a session, A, and B, it was somebody who needed a signature on the mail. So as we were sitting there, we actually left the door open after that. This woman walks in, needed us to sign something, and so I did. It turned out to be a check for 20 grand. And I tried to show that to this person as, every time I say I need X, Spirit has it show up for me. Now, it's not always that immediate or that big. But it gets to the point where I have such a deep faith that Spirit is answering my every call, that we were in a board meeting, and actually Sally, our practitioner today, was part of the board at the time, so she can back me up on this. The lights went out for some reason, and we're in the board meeting, and it's getting dark, and we couldn't figure out how to keep going. And so at one point, as a joke, I just went, "Let there be light," and the lights came on, and there was no one more freaked out than me. Somehow the electricity turned itself on just at the right moment. So it's bigger. It's more than we thought it was. It's more than we dreamed, as Sarah just sang. It's everything we think it is, and it's more than we dreamed. So what we have faith in is a divine being that is beyond our human understanding and yet entirely personal to us, as well as a law, the law of cause and effect, that says as I believe it, so it will be done unto me. That the thought is the cause and the effect is what we call a demonstration. That's what we as religious scientists have faith in. That it is absolutely 100% always at work, works for everybody, sometimes in ways we don't like, but it will always work. So that is what we believe in. And we believe in it to the point that once I had a diagnosis on my foot, I just decided, 12 weeks and surgery and pins and blah, 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 that doesn't sound like fun. So I'm really psyched that I have that original x-ray that shows, yes, there was a crack. I will be equally psyched but unsurprised when it's gone much sooner than anyone expects. And I know that there's practitioners praying with me, and I know that you guys are praying for me. So join me now in knowing that this foot is taken care of, that I am healed and able to do everything I need to do. I have an absolute belief that that is entirely possible for me right here, right now, because we hold that power. Now, that doesn't mean if somebody's broken their foot and they had to go through all sorts of stuff, or that if they're physically sick, that they have somehow done something wrong. Let me be very, very clear. We all have our own experience. It's not mine to say whether yours is right, wrong, or indifferent. That is your decision. What I know is that the master teacher who we call Jesus, who we call the master teacher, was a Christ that came to teach us how to use this law, and we can. Now, over the years, mainstream Christianity has changed and taught that actually only Jesus could do it. That's not what he said. He said all of us could do it. And then he went over and over and over again to show us how it works, whether it was raising Lazarus, whether it was raising the servant, whether it was healing somebody who was right in front of him. Even to the point where he had been horribly treated and was up on the cross, he still knew, in spite of going through a very real physical experience, in his mind, in his heart, in his soul, he knew he was not alone. He knew that even if it looked like he died, it was not the end of his world, that he absolutely had control over that he could change what was going on in the world, and that is why he was able to come back after a 3-day rest. There is absolute faith within the Christ that is displayed as faith in us, that the kingdom of heaven is in us. And what Jesus said was, everything I have done, you will do and more. Now, not everybody liked what Jesus had to say. I would say that the people who were trying to deal with the occupying and hostile government of the Romans probably didn't want to hear what Jesus had to say, because it got them into trouble and it upended whatever little safety there was in their world. That doesn't make it less true. People might disagree with you. You're going to have to, as you move forward in this philosophy, think about who you tell what to. If you know that you tell, your next door neighbor who's a bit of a curmudgeon, that you have an absolute faith that everything's all right, you're going to get an earful, a list of what's not all right, and kids today, and people are putting pineapple on pizza, and oh, woe is me. Maybe you don't poke that particular sleeping dragon. So be very clear on what you believe, and then be very clear on who you choose to share that with. There might come a time you have to upset people. But in the beginning especially, it's really important that we simply know what it is we believe, and we do things like go to extra classes. I've heard Big Sky is beautiful, and so I'm glad Tom and Sandy were able to go to that. We go to the conferences, we go to classes, we go to practitioners to surround ourselves with people who will help us figure out the nitty-gritty of what we believe, and help us get a subjective back of the mind acceptance of a higher truth. Now, there was a time in this teaching when we were actually, our leadership had to take a very close look at where we were, and this was maybe 15, even 20 years ago now, because we were in trouble, folks. We were right on the edge of what the professionals called bureaucratic death. We were just not doing well. We were so bogged down in bureaucracy that we had forgotten who we were. And so a group of our leadership locked themselves in a hotel room, didn't open the door, and there are still stories about who they didn't open the door for. And they came together and said, okay, so never mind the centers, never mind the corporate body. What is the world we want to live in? And let's just start there, because we'll get our marching orders from our own internal divine being. But first we start with, who is it we want to be and what is the world we want to live in? And that is where our global vision started. I have faith in the global vision, which says we are creating a world that works for everyone. We are creating a world in which everyone has sufficient food and water and medical attention if they need it. Everyone is heard, or the word we use actually in the document is enfranchised. Everyone has a vote, everyone has a voice. Now, with that comes a certain responsibility. We have to marry our freedom to being responsible for our own behavior. And if we have the freedom to speak our truth and we choose not to say anything, then that's for us to look at. That's nobody else's fault or responsibility. It's nobody's to blame. We just need to take a good hard look at that and decide, is this how I want to live in the world? Is this the world I want to live in? The one in which, although I have a voice, I won't use it. As a matter of fact, the fifth bullet point in our global vision is we envision a world where personal responsibility joins with social conscience in every area of the political, corporate, academic, and social sectors, providing sustainable structures to further the emerging global consciousness. So what does that mean? It does not mean everybody needs to go out and run for president. Trust and believe. Don't go there. What it does mean is, at the very least, we all get a vote. We should all have a vote. And as we take on our personal responsibility, we use it. And then as we look around just here in Prescott, what is ours to do? What can we be part of growing and changing and creating in this world? From a sense of joy, recognizing that not everybody's going to agree about what that looks like. What we do is, maybe it's ours to look at the academic and social sectors. And so there's a group of us maybe who want to get together and make sure that every kid has access to the internet so that they can do their homework. Make sure that every school has enough free lunches that kids aren't distracted when they come in and try and learn. So these are the things, we can look at those things and say, we have power here. This is the good part. We have the power to change it. And we are doing so collectively. I would suggest that the best way to do it is to start locally. Start with your own. We start within and work our way out. We start within our own heart and mind, and then we allow that joy and that can-do-ness out into the world. Today, we're celebrating Labor Day, and I find it amusing that we all celebrate labor by taking the day off. And having done a little study about this, I love the story, because it was it only became a federal holiday in 1894, towards the end of the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, as things were really picking up speed. We had gone from agriculture to factories. And people were figuring out how factories were going to work and how people who worked and lived, pretty much lived in the factories, were going to have their lives. And the world that they lived in at the time, when they looked around, what they saw is they were working 12 days a week, 14 to 16-hour days, every single day for diddly squat pay. And children as young as 5 and 6 were working. We had no child labor laws. We had no unions. And that's where the blue collar workers got together and said, you know, this doesn't work for me. And yes, it got messy. And yes, it got violent. As a matter of fact, the earliest recorded strike was shoemakers in New Jersey in 1768. And yes, they absolutely were protesting having gotten a cut in their wages. And yeah, there were some people upset about the fact that they put down their tools and refused to work. We have come a long way since then. We absolutely can state our truth and let our actions uphold that. We begin with getting clear on what's in our own hearts and that we are coming from a place of joy. The truth is, this teaching will help you weather storms. This teaching will help you come to a place where you are confident speaking your truth. I do not promise you will never break a bone. Obviously, it must be possible because I have proven that. I don't promise you no more bad hair days. I do say that if you will practice this, you will find the changes you want to create in the world are coming from your joy. And that your best day now will eventually look like a bad day or a medium to bad day in your future as you practice this stuff. As things do happen in the world around you or in your personal world, you will find, as I did this week, that there is so much to be grateful for, that this actually has simply become, an experience that I learned from. I walk around, well, I don't walk around, I gimple around right now, and I tell people I'm going to get some great muscles out of this. And I might crack jokes about not saying I crack myself up anymore. But there comes a point where even something that might be seen as a negative is now seen as an opportunity. And that is what this teaching is, and that is what we do. We don't have to ignore what's going on in the world, whether it's, the year is 1894 and we're figuring out how to do unions, or it's 1776 and we're figuring out, how, we're Hamilton figuring out how to change things in the colonies. It doesn't matter. Even the stuff that's going on today, I have faith that the divine being, as the American people, are going to sail through this time just as we have sailed through every other time, and that once we get to the next step, things will be better. I don't need to say how it's going to happen. What I know is that people are essentially good, and people are essentially divine, and that is what is being birthed here and now. And so we take that into prayer because that is what we do. I know with every aspect of my being that the truth is God. The truth is this thing that is infinite good, infinite power, infinite peace. It is the joy of life itself. And it is the reason we have come here in physical form as the face of God, so that God can have the experience on this planet in human form of reconnecting with itself, of having experiences and manifesting good and more good. And so I celebrate in this moment that God is all there is, in, through, for, and as each and every one of us and every being on this planet and anywhere else right now. In this universe, there is no spot where God is not, and thus it must be the activity of God that is going on within and around each and every one of us right now. And I choose to have faith in that truth. I choose to remember that in my world, God's up to something, and it's always going to have a good outcome because it's God. It's good. That is all that is. And so I am in celebration, knowing that I will one day stand in my truth comfortably again, knowing that we will come together in the name of love in a physical sanctuary and be together affirming each other's godness and simply knowing it to be true. I'm so grateful to know that this is spirit, what spirit is and how it works, that there are no other options. I bless it all. I call it good and very good, and so I let it be. And if this has landed as true for you, I invite you to say with me, and so it is.
Well, we let the love wash over us. We let it be. We let the joy wash over us. We let it be. We let the grass wash over us. We let it be. We let the love wash over us. We let it be. We let the joy wash over us. We let it be. We let the grace wash over us. We let it be.
And in that grace and in that allowing good to come forward, we move into our offering time. While we are a very stable center, I will let you know that we have been a little bit in the red for the last couple months, just for those months, not for the year. And so I ask you to take a look at what is your personal responsibility to create a world that works for everyone. We need a center to engage and as a place to teach all of this great stuff. And so I would ask you to consider, if this is serving you, please support it financially. If you are finding your life getting better as a result of this teaching, please support it financially. And so what we do is, if we were all together physically, is we take our gift and we hold it over our heart. Now, I tithe automatically. There's a way to set it up so it just kind of comes out, and it's awesome. And I don't have to worry that I forgot to do it this month. So I put what looks like an empty hand over my heart when I do this, so that we can do the dedication of the offering. And what I'm doing is saying that all that I am, everything that's in here, belongs in service to the divine. And that includes my money. And so if we could have the dedication of the offering, awesome. What we say is, divine love in and through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, life. And thank you, Sarah, for coming back on and singing again.